Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So Orisa's popularity has surged in recent weeks and we haven't got a lot of videos going over how to effectively play her. We haven't done a master guide in Orisa because it's just not really happened. But today we want to get 5 major tips for playing Orisa with one of the best Orisa players out there, EvilToaster. Let us know what you think of this video, but also let us know what other heroes you would like us to go over in the future and also what players you would like us to talk to. But let's get straight into today's video. Orisa's a hero that's become very much more popular recently. Albeit surrounding stuff like Cheese Compa now, but I do feel that there's probably some viability to her without the likes of Torbjorn and Bastion. So, first tip, I guess, should really be, like, where would you play her?
So, Orisa doesn't really fit optimally into every comp, but she can succeed in any comp if you really want to make it work. The main points that you would want to think about, though, is how mobile is your team. Because let's say you have like double flanker Genji Tracer, you know, and then your other tank is a diver like Winston or Diva. You don't get to do all that much to help the dive. But you do have a halt that could help pull an enemies out of position to help your dive. But it's not very optimal because you can't really absorb damage for the rest of your team like a Diva can. But if you have like a really stationary or like grounded team, like you have maybe double hit scan, or you have a Junkrat who's kind of mobile but not really a dive hero, Orisa is really good because it'll just make it so your team will be able to stay wherever they want and just zone out people really hard. Orisa is really good on grounded maps, which are things like King's Row, Dorado first point, and maybe Dorado third point. But for maps that are like really vertical, like Dorado second point, I really don't like playing Orisa like for attack. Like when my Dorado game plan right now is usually like for attack or even defense is to play Orisa for the first choke. But then for the second phase, I almost always switch to Diva or Winston because the high ground is really, really important on that phase. But on maps like King's Row, you know, there's not a whole lot of high ground. Most fights take place on the ground in those long hallways. So it's pretty easy to just pick something like Orisa. You don't have to worry too much about getting ambushed or flanked. People like to play her on Koth maps, certain ones, like Nepal, Sanctum.
The Well, Ilios.
And Ilios Well, yeah, very famous. And she's totally alright there. But she can also like get countered still. Like the other team can still pick a dive and it's really hard to deal with. Especially if they're on Fair and Mercy. But if they're playing grounded stuff, like especially if they have a Roadhog or a Zarya, it's not hard to just zone them out of the well completely, and if they go in, you just punish them.
You just spoke about Sanctum and Ilios, which are well-known Orisa maps simply because you can pull people off the side of maps. Halt is an ability that obviously has a lot of potential, but how do you want to use it? Because I don't think it's necessarily been tapped into just yet.
There is actually one tip. When you're playing against people who are on high ground, and you want to try to pull them off, you want to try to do it from an angle where they can't see the halt coming. So like just right below them so they can't look down. Because if you do it from really far away, it'll be like, oh, there's a halt coming, I'm going to get out of the way. Like you just do it from under them or from the side of them where they won't see it coming, and then it's really easy to pull people off of a platform. So halt is not just a CC ability to me. Like, of course that's all it does, but you could view it as something more. And for me, halt to me is a damage ability because it'll allow you to get guaranteed damage because you know how your enemy is about to get pulled. For example, if you just throw a halt above someone's head and detonate it, they're going to go straight up into the air, stay still for like, you know, a little bit, and then fall to the ground. And it's a very predictable path as long as you get used to it. So all you have to do is practice pulling someone into the air and tracking them as they go up and down. And because Orisa's gun is projectile based, it's a little bit harder than it seems. But what I do is that I just have a custom game mode where I have bots set up to just do nothing. And then I practice pulling them into the air and shooting them as they go up and then shooting them as they go down. And if you get it right, you get almost 200 damage and kill like any hero if they're close enough, without them being able to juke it or move at all.
Yeah, how frequently do you use it then? Do you pretty much use it off cooldown every single time then?
I kind of do, but it's not always correct. It'll depend a bit. It also kind of depends on the comp you're playing against. Like, if you're against a really grounded comp, like with Reinhardt, Zarya kind of stuff, that's kind of slow, you could just throw halts in to help win a shield battle. Like if the enemy Reinhardt is trying to advance, you could just throw a halt behind them and pull them back. So then they have more distance to walk, meanwhile you're still breaking their shield. Or you could even pull them straight up too. But let's say you're against a dive comp that has like Winston, and you know that they're always going to like try to dive first. You could hold on to your halt cooldown and then wait for Winston to jump in, and then when he jumps in, you throw a halt at his feet to keep him inside his bubble. You walk into his bubble and then you just headshot him, because then he doesn't have protection anymore. And if he walks out of his bubble, then the rest of the team will just kill him. So that's one example where you wouldn't want to use it just any time that you have it. But against other comps, it's not that bad to just throw halt. But you have to think about what you're really getting. Don't just do it for nothing. And ideally, try to let your team know too. Because like, if you have like a Reinhardt or a Junkrat on your team, it's good to let them know when you're about to halt. Because if you pull the whole team together and Reinhardt gets a fire strike, that's like half of his ult that he gets an ult charge. Or if it's Junkrat and he throws like a left click in a mine, he'll probably just kill 2 people.
Orisa is considered a main tank, which is much like Reinhardt and Winston, but there's a lot more dynamic shield playstyle with Winston and Reinhardt than Orisa. So, like, kind of what tips do you have when it comes to placing the shield and getting the most out of it? Because it can be, you know, once you put it down, that's where it's going to be for at least 8 seconds, so...
Exactly. Like, putting down Orisa's shield is a commitment. So you have to think about the future and what you're really going to be doing for the next 8 seconds. The biggest tip really is to just not throw it to where you can't use it, which is just like, you know, like let's say you and your enemy team are a certain distance apart. If you throw your shield too far and you can't actually move up to that position safely, the other team's just going to walk past your shield, and then it was a worthless cooldown. So you kind of do want to throw it as close to you as you can without giving up as much space. So you just kind of have to find the sweet spot, and that's going to be different in every engagement. As far as angling goes, what I mean by that is that you don't just want to throw your shield straight forward. Like let's say Dorado first point defense, for example, when you're holding the main choke under the arch. If you throw your shield straight into that direction, it's going to protect you only from that angle from in front. But there's also a flank route on your right where there's the stairs and the well area. Instead, if you throw a shield at a 45-degree angle to the right, it's going to have you're going to have full protection from the front choke, and also if anyone comes from the right to like maybe a Roadhog's going to come over and try to hook you, the shield will still cover you. So you kind of want to see your shield not just as one forward wall, but almost like a right angle of a shield that can wrap around you.
I think when it comes to a lot of stuff with Orisa, Fortify is often overlooked. What kind of use can you actually get out of the ability, and ultimately when do you want to be using it?
Fortify is the one ability I think you do need to be a bit stingy with, because it's the kind of ability that you're going to be really sorry that you wasted if you do. It'll leave you really vulnerable when you don't have it, and you just kind of want to use it to protect yourself from those kinds of situations. For example, the biggest example is probably Reinhardt Charge, where Reinhardt pretty much does nothing against Orisa and can't get Orisa out of the front line the way he normally would with another tank because of Fortify, and then he just charges into you and takes a bunch of headshot damage because he's charging right into your gun. Pretty much any kind of advancement. It doesn't have to be crowd control. It could just be, you know, oh, they're about to dive and move in. But you're really just waiting for their committed engagement. Like, basically, if you have to use your Fortify when it's still a poke battle, when they're just trying to get down shields and force your tank cooldowns or whatever, you're basically doing what they want. Like, they want to poke damage and just use their left clicks to try and get you to waste your Fortify. So then they go in, and then you don't have it, then you're an easier target. But just the biggest bait will be like a Reinhardt will walk up to you and just swing the hammer on you, and you really want to Fortify because you know, I don't want to take all this damage, he's going through my shield. But really just kind of have to, you know, just walk away, use Halt to pull him away, and just save your Fortify, because Reinhardt wants you to get that Fortify down. The only like kind of low value Fortify that's okay is if you need to hold the front line and your shield is broken. Like, you know, maybe your shield dies in like 4 seconds and you need more time before you get your next shield, you could just Fortify. And as long as you're getting healed, you could hold the front line still. And the other team can't do anything about you until your shield comes up.
And then I guess finally, there's only really one other thing to talk about, and that is Orisa's ultimate, which effectively acts as a nano boost to 5 other targets, but can be shut down fairly easily. So I think a lot of people really want to know, how do you effectively use Supercharger, and when to use it as well?
Supercharger is really a unique ult, yeah. But because it's so vulnerable as well, you really have to think a lot of steps in advance here. And it also kind of depends, again, on what kind of comp you're against. So let's say you're against a dive comp, something really mobile. If you just throw down your Supercharger, it's really easy for just like a Genji, a Tracer, or a Winston, or Diva, or anything, to just walk past your shield and kill it if you leave it unattended. So you kind of have to look like for example, Winston's the biggest one, because he'll just shoot through your shield and kill your Supercharger. Even if you're standing on top of it, he'll kill it. So you kind of want to look and see, is Winston going to jump? And if he is, you kind of wait for him to jump, and then you throw down your Supercharger, because then he won't be able to do anything about it. And by the time that he has his jump cooldown again, he'll probably be dead if you're focusing him. But against grounded comps, like Reinhardt, Zarya, Lucio, whatever, you can just, plop it down as long as they're a good distance away. Because against Reinhardt, he too can just shoot through your shield, or hammer through your shield rather, and just kill your Supercharger. And don't be afraid to just Supercharge to break a Rein shield, because they're not going to expect that much damage coming out that quickly. So you would wait for them to come out of a corner, and let's say you're last point on Junkertown, for example, where it's a really long hallway and it has a little turn. If you're in that long hallway part, and you're kind of in the middle, if you Supercharge, where's the Rein gonna go? They don't have a place to go. They don't have immediate access to cover. They're just out in the open. So if you Supercharge before a fight even starts, but they're in a position where they can't really retreat, especially with the extra damage to the shield, just throw the Supercharger and win the fight.
And sort of finally then, is there any closing thoughts that you have on Orisa, how to play her, and where can people find you to watch the Orisa in action?
Orisa's a pretty good tank. I don't think she's that far from even being pro tournament viable, but I think it just needs a bit more exploration. I think she's good. I think she's totally playable in the solo queue climate right now, in any level. And that's kind of showing by her win rate lately. I think on Master Overwatch she has the highest win rate right now, or overbuff, whichever, if that's relevant. As for me, I stream pretty much every day on Twitch, EvilToaster OW, and same name for Twitter. And yeah, I'll stream Orisa mostly. She's always my most played every day, but I do play other tanks.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Do check out EvilToaster. He's a very good up-and-coming streamer, and obviously very good on Orisa, so do check him out. All the details in the description below. Again, let us know what heroes you would like us to see, what players you would like us to talk to for future top 5 videos like this. And until next time, take care. We'll see you then.